Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Introducing a powerful new update from the Foojan app. Now with flexible subscription plans to fit your journey monthly, quarterly, or yearly. Our new AI-driven onboarding customizes your path to feeling better, faster, and enjoy a refreshed experience with stunning 3D interactive videos. Update now. Empower your inner voice with Foojan. Download today.
Listen up if you want to promote your personal growth and self-awareness. I found the Foojan app last month and I have been absolutely loving it. I personally have never learned guided meditation, but thanks to this app, I now have learned incredible tools for my own stress relief and emotional self-awareness. Not to mention, there are self-evaluation tools and professional coaching available to utilize however your journey to self-discovery takes you. Join Foojan today and redefine your life one step at a time.
Welcome to the Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Foojan Zeine, a psychotherapist, an author, and the creator of the Awareness Integration Theory. So thrilled to have you join me today. And I hope that this conversation is going to be really insightful. And I'll say why insightful really means insightful today. So today I'm speaking with Katie Turner. She's a registered psychologist. She's a speaker and a founder of the Katie Turner Psychology, Inc. She's the author of the book, ready? Fuck Toxic Spirituality, Avoiding Red Flags and Navigating the Spiritual Path and with Integrity. So Katie believes in a holistic approach to healing. She has studied a wide range of Western psychological approaches and Eastern healing techniques, and she brings them passionately together in helping her clients to heal the past, find more peace in the present, and create the best possible future. So her mission is to bring together the science of psychology to the practice of spirituality. I really loved our conversation. There's a lot of personal conversation in our personal journeys and how to kind of like determine and distinguish between intuition and your ego and, what to do with it and how to kind of see some of these red flags that might be out there, kind of bringing people into a spiritual world where they might not feel safe or that they're doing really quick turnaround or expecting a quick turnaround and it doesn't necessarily happen. So I enjoyed our conversation and I'm positive you will also. Now be sure to subscribe to my podcast, my YouTube channel, and connect with me through all of my social media, website, foojanzeine.com. Don't forget, go to Foojan app. This app has created amazing, like 31 areas of your life where you could go through journaling, guided journaling. It has your AI chatbot with you. So every day, anytime you like, you can go to the app and check out with Mira, the AI chatbot, which is trained on awareness integration. You can ask her questions and she will answer you from that mode and will give you skills. And we found that people are saying that it has about 71% improvement in those areas that people have been actually doing the work on. So I'm positive you'll enjoy it. So go sign up for Foojan app. It's free for 3 days. You could just check it out and see if it works for you. I love to hear from you. So without further ado, here's Katie Turner.
Intentional Parenting, a practical guide to awareness integration theory, written by Dr. Jafari, Dr. Foojan Zeine, and Dr. Manoukian, 3 experts in human development, is your step-by-step guide to raising a healthy child prepared for a culturally integrated world. You're supported in parenting infants to adolescents using the latest evidence-based scientific research on parenting. Order your copy on Amazon now. Are you a psychotherapist looking to enhance your practice? The Awareness Integration Therapy developed by Dr. Foojan Zeine is a comprehensive guide to the principle and techniques of this powerful therapeutic approach. Join the growing community who have elevated their practice and expanded their skills by embracing Awareness Integration Therapy and witnessing its life-changing impact. Order your copy on Amazon now.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you join the show, everyone. Katie Turner is with us. So you have an interesting name for your book.
Yes.
So tell me, how did you or the publisher came up, by the way, everybody, the name of the book is Fuck Toxic Spirituality. So somehow, putting those two words together, the F word and the spirituality, we're like, oh, interesting. So tell us, first of all, how did you come up with that name?
Yeah, I had a couple options, and that one, when I did a bit of audience testing, people seem to like that one better. I do tend to swear too, so it's a little more aligned with me. It's not quite as harsh, the content. It was really, there were certain themes I kept seeing over and over again in my individual work in my psychology practice. And so, really, the desire to write the book was based on those things that just kept coming up over and over and over again.
So do you have two practices, or is it like it's the same practice, but you kind of bring both into it, your clinical work and the spiritual world?
I do both. Yeah, I have training so that I can do both as a psychologist. Like I do transpersonal work, spiritual work. It's one of my areas of specialty.
Oh, beautiful. And for people who might not necessarily know what transpersonal work is, can you
Mhm.
explain a little bit how the
Yeah.
spirituality comes together in this work?
It's more spiritually focused because, I mean, psychology as a whole, I get that people may need to be careful if they have spiritual or intuitive experiences, who they talk to about that. It doesn't mean like sometimes it is a mental health concern, but there's many people who actually have a strong spiritual life and practice or like get spiritual messages, and it can be very helpful and be part of their resilience and kind of a superpower in their life and not a mental health concern at all. So, but like the DSM, kind of the Bible in psychology, doesn't have a lot of places to put those experiences.
It's very interesting that you share that. I used to be the head of an outpatient program for one of the hospitals in Southern California. And it was so interesting that when I was there with people who were, sorry, hallucinating, or they were either on the manic stage of bipolar, which they were hallucinating,
Hmm.
diagnosed by schizophrenia, which in their active place, they were hallucinating.
Hmm.
We were there because they started with hallucinating because of drug-related hallucinations, right? Like drug-induced hallucinations. And then you also saw a group that were not hallucinating, but they were experiencing. And yes, some of them could be experiencing those because they just had that, and that was something that showed up, and but people told them this is weird, there's something wrong with you, or they
Hmm.
started hallucinating because they were not hallucinating, but they started gaining these types of experiences because they possibly were using marijuana or hallucinogens such as mushrooms or psilocybin or some of these things. But it was really their natural element, which they were born with this. And
Yeah.
when you said that, it's like, well, some people like, I don't know which is which. When you are at the presence of them, you really get to know which is which because there's such a difference in them. And can you share a little bit about the difference?
Yeah, and I have kind of a free like screening question thing. It's not meant to be a diagnostic piece, but I find with the specialization in a bit of both, and I'm not a specialist in more psychosis-based illness, I would refer out for that, but sometimes spiritual communities can just put everything under a spiritual awakening, and there can be some serious mental health concerns going on. And so somebody meditating more or just, like not getting appropriate help is not going to be a good thing. And on the other side, sometimes it can be dismissed as like, oh, am I going quote unquote crazy? And what are the key differential things to look for is can someone kind of function well in day-to-day reality? Like, and do they have an observing ego filter? Because I went through my own spiritual awakening when I was already in the field of psychology. I was very skeptical before, and I work with so many people who it's part of their private life, but they're not advertising it. Very few people would know, or they're selective about who they talk to about those experiences. because there's a part of our brain that recognizes like I know how kind of quote unquote crazy this might sound to people, or like I don't know what someone's going to think of me if they think if they'll think I'm way out there, like if I lose all credibility. So when people lose that like discernment or that ability to know how it might sound to other people, that's kind of another concern.
Yes, I absolutely have had a lot of these conversations and experiences myself. And yes, it's funny because sometimes I'll say it like, I've had these experiences, or my husband is like, oh, she just has these experiences, and people are looking at me like, and then I'm like, yes, possibly as I'm, being a keynote speaker at a neuroscience conference, it might be weird that we're sharing these things because it's kind of like, in that. But it was interesting because even in those conferences, when people have the concept, the freedom, let's say, and the comfort to be able to share some of their personal experiences, and people come to me, you're like, oh, do you think do you believe in this? I said, I can't tell you what I believe in, but I can tell you this is my experience. So I'm not making this into like, this is the law. I'm just saying, I just had this experience and it was interesting. It was intriguing. These are the things I learned from it. So coming back, you talk in your book about what spirituality is and how to kind of get connected with that intuitive side of you, some of these experiences that you might gain. And I think many of the practices have different functions, and sometimes people gain a particular experience and they want to now induce that experience consistently. And then, there's a different protocol for inducing things. So you could see also that we have an amazing experience, and then suddenly you're like, I want to control this experience. I want to create it. I want to do a particular thing with it. And I think that also by itself gets people into some sort of anxiety and upset, and I'm not good enough, and why can't I, and arguments with other people. What do can you share a little bit about what you mean by that as you shared it in the book, and then kind of like expand it to this part?
Yeah, I think there's kind of a misconception that intuitive ability is something people are just born with. We've kind of heard those stories of people who just have these experiences from a really young age, like they might be a medium or something. And it's like, oh, they just always like had this really strong ability. We're really connected. But I do think in my own life and in my professional experience, I do find it's a skill we can develop over time. But you want to approach it like a creative project type skill, not a really intense, like competitive sport type thing, because we can't control, like intuition has its own way of operating. So it doesn't follow the way our ego or rational mind wants it to work. It's not like a search engine that we just plunk in, like, I want answers on this and I want them in this way. It's more a relationship we develop with that spiritual, like something greater than ourself. And spirituality, it doesn't have to be religious. It can be for people, but it can also be like nature, higher self, whatever language kind of fits for people on that. But it really is that what you talk about, that like experiencing it, not just a rational mind exercise anymore. And so, but it is important because we do need, if we want to work to actively develop it, like we need time where we're out of our busyness of like doing and rational mind. Like we need time just to be in more flow states, more in the present moment. And then if we want to develop it more, reflecting on times where we have had that intuitive experiences, or being open to kind of receive guidance, answers, like play with it in lighter ways and emotional, like lower stakes emotional decisions. We want it when we have really big life decisions that are really stressful, but that's the hardest time to access it if we haven't built a strong connection with it already.
Can you define intuition the way that you mean by that? Can you define it?
Yeah, I have a free quiz on my website about like what intuitive sensory gateway people have. So it's usually a subtle difference in terms of sensory information that's coming from something beyond just your rational or logical mind. So for some people, it might be insights coming together that their subconscious or unconscious kind of just bubbles up. But I also believe it's more than that. My personal experience, I've got very detailed information from stuff I have no logical mind basis to be pulling from. So I think it's this, and when I went through my awakening, because I'm very scientific minded, I was very skeptical and also looking for ways to see like how can I make sense of these experiences. And I found a lot of the quantum physics research was really helpful to say that if we are really just the nature of reality is this one unified field of energy that we're a part of on this quantum level, maybe that intuitive ability is actually our ability to tap into that and receive information from that field. And there's some really interesting neuroscience research. There's a book called The Awakened Brain that does a really good job of breaking down of like our brains actually seem to be designed or have this neurological capability of actually receiving this information.
One of the things that I found for me at times confusing, there are many times that I experience the experiences and gain insight, and I do get it that this is not my ego necessarily,
Mm-hmm.
just mind coming at it, or like even when you said sometimes this information is so new that I don't even think it was in my subconscious mind either. Like I haven't necessarily ever experienced it in my lifetime that I could say, okay, I got it, and then I put it back in the, filing cabinet, and it's there's also, I think there are times that I'm not sure if it is my ego or it's something that I really want it to be a particular way. And therefore, my subconscious is kind of like manipulating in order to create that type of an insight or type of vision or type, because I wanted so much, desire so much to be this way,
Mm-hmm.
Intuitively and creatively, my subconscious brings this and weaves it into that level. I don't know if you've ever had that experience.
Oh, for sure. And that's normal. I think it takes, because to develop it as a skill set, it takes so much practice and it takes so much feedback and refinement over time because it is often very metaphoric, symbolic. It can be subtle feelings in the body or just subtle shifts in energies. And it is processed like that intuitive information. Also, our rational brain can jump onto it really quickly and like fill in the blanks, and then it's off course. So I think it's a normal part of the process. And sometimes in spiritual communities, there's like, oh, just trust or like trust the process. And I don't really believe in that. I'm more like openness and skepticism and a like healthy level of risk tolerance because we need time to actually get fluent in an intuitive language to like trust our ability to translate it well, know what is actual intuitive information. And sometimes it might actually, we might not be able to get a very clear answer if we have past experience, like old trauma or belief systems that are getting in the way. So sometimes we have to get better at really recognizing when is there internal stuff that's actually really blocking a clear answer. And so it's usually not fear-based or like tight or restrictive. It's usually just a kind of clear knowing. Not always, but sometimes it'll go against what we want. And it usually gives us just kind of the sense of like the next step, but not the entire picture. So if it's kind of like in 5 years, all these things are going to happen, it's very rare it comes through like that. It's kind of like, I have a feeling to go talk to this person or go to this one workshop, and then who knows from there.
So in your book, you say how to how to increase that level of information. What is it that how have you done this for yourself, where you've been able to open the level of intuition? I know for me, what I've been doing is more, I've tried to do this with matters that are not related to me so that I can at least know that my own desire doesn't show up and try to control it somehow.
Yeah.
I'm tempted to be able to do that with others. Sometimes we're sitting there and then a piece of information shows up for me, which is not necessarily what they are presenting at that moment. Just say, this thought just showed up for me and I just want to share it with you. And you see if it's, fits or not. or it's about somebody else that, I kind of like connect and ask a question. And because I don't have any personal, let's say, agenda around, I can trust that intuitive concept more. The place that I'm more worried about is where I know that I also have a personal agenda.
Yeah, yeah.
So I just wanted to ask you, because it's also in the book and you're sharing it with people, how do you kind of fine tune that way of listening for your intuition?
For sure. I think, first of all, it is making that space so we can kind of ask those questions and see what comes through. Finding out what your dominant sensory gateway is really helpful, because in the beginning you want to really focus on like that one or two dominant gateways and not just be the way you think it should be, of like whether it's an auditory message, visual, just a knowing, or is it more like sensation based in your own body, like emotional or physical energy? Because we all tend to have one or two, and when you know your dominant one, you can go to that one a lot more. Starting with things where it is really low emotional stakes, like you don't really care what happens, not in a negative way, but so other people, it can also just be really low stakes pieces of like you're going to someone's house you've never met before. Take a few minutes to be like, what kind of impressions do I get about this? Like what comes up for me when I think about it? And having that chance to reflect back again to see, okay, because we want to see what was actually accurate and what didn't make any sense at all. Like may not have actually been accurate intuitive information. Um, Depending on the way you receive it as well, I think when it is our own kind of personal choices, having it be an ongoing kind of dialogue, we definitely want to be practicing with lower stakes stuff first and start getting some of it. But then it's almost more some form of like prayer or asking, or like putting out the better questions of like, what do I need to know about this? Show me some guidance, and being open to see how does that come through. And it may not answer like immediately when you ask, but you might have a series of like synchronicities in the next few weeks that like three different people tell you about the same book. And it's not one that's popping up all over the place. So you're like, this is interesting. Why does this one keep coming up? Or so for some people, it might be dreams or just a sense of messages just kind of coming through. And it's more of a like body knowing and recognizing. And sometimes too, if our emotions are too attached to it, I'd also recommend people do some emotional work to kind of clear like the fear, anything old there, to like feel and move through the emotions. Because when those are really active, it's tough to get anything kind of clearly coming through.
And is there a way of in your practice that you do work with trauma in order to release, the fears or anything that is stuck? Because obviously, I have the awareness integration theory that I work, as trauma informed. But I really want you to share how do you, and that's also, by the way, part of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Do you work in releasing some of these effects of the trauma so that these pockets of belief systems and emotional states that are kind of holding on, that they can get released?
Yeah, well, I'm certified in about 3 or 4 different trauma processing modalities. So there's lots out there for anyone listening. It's finding someone who actually like is more trained and certified in trauma processing, not necessarily just trauma informed, but that they do a lot of that work. They have training in it, and having a relationship with someone you can develop trust with, and then can find the right tool or the right technique for the person to kind of bring up the old emotional memory in a safe way so that the brain can start kind of processing it and really being like, okay, that happened then, it's not happening now. Depending on the trauma, like a single event, sometimes in a few sessions, you can clear that pretty quickly. If it's a long history, it's like that can be long-term work, and you're working at it layer by layer. But you can still have significant shifts in session and start bringing in more of that, like what's the kind of intuitive connection of just even the next step. And I think some of the places where people get frustrated with intuitive information is we go to it like a chat GPT or search engine where we want it to answer us in a certain way. And there's certain ways that it just doesn't work that way. Like it's almost like our companion on this like hero's journey quest, that it's like there's certain things we need to do too, and more information comes in time when we're a part of the journey, but it doesn't give us all the answers. And sometimes it gives us nothing when it's like time for us to actually take some steps or do some things.
Funny when you said that. I'm like, yeah, I've been using it a little bit before. I had used it such as the search engine. Okay, I want this answer. And now I've used it, you know, how like you go to kayak and you want to go someplace and then you put this price check and you tell me when it's going up or tell me when it's coming down. And you're like, you know, you just put it out there and wait for it to show up. And now I've noticed it's like I put the question up and just let it be. And then, as you said, sometimes I'm in the shower, sometimes it's in my dream, sometimes
Yeah.
somebody shows up and just gives you that answer, or and then it's like ding 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 ding. That's how it happened. So I really really appreciate you know when you say ask it, but ask it in a way that you're open to however the information shows up, whether that information is intuitive and connecting with something beyond you, or it's even half of the time could be, you know, there's somewhere inside of you that, you know, has the answer, but it's not in your conscious level, and just allowing it to be, it'll show up. It'll pull it from your subconscious and it'll bring the data back to you in front of you, whether it's yours or it's from somewhere beyond you that you've had.
For sure. And sometimes there's a piece of like, what are the parts of the process you can keep exploring? Because sometimes the questions we ask are, you know, should I stay in this relationship? Should I take this job? Where should I live? It's like sometimes you still have to go look at homes and like get the mortgage approval. You have to have the hard conversation with the person you're dating to see if it can move on. Like there's action steps a lot of the time that intuitive and logic coming together. It's like we still have to go through certain processes and gather information and let it simmer before we arrive at a knowing.
Yes. And mine doesn't necessarily come in meditation. So I know that
Yeah.
a lot of people say, okay, you sit down, you meditate, and you open your mind, and you know the information kind of shows up. Mine doesn't do it that way. Mine just shows up in the middle of the day, and you know, just like data pours in. I'm doing something, and then suddenly like pours in. So for me,
Mhm.
it doesn't actually happen. And I think for me, I think because I'm sitting, you know, in the meditative state,
Mhm.
it becomes too significant in that moment. I'm
Yeah, yeah,
supposed to be letting go of significance.
for sure.
That's my
Yeah, but a lot of people it can be bath or shower. It can be like it can be those times where you're just kind of in the present moment, but it's less likely to happen if people are like super stressed out doing a pros and cons list of all the different options of the decision. Like those are less the least likely times that that intuitive information is just going to come in. We kind of have to let it sit.
Yes. So, what do you mean by toxic spirituality?
Yeah, so I do mean it as a spectrum, and there's a lot of different ways it can show up. Some of the different kind of themes I talk about in the book overall are, and again, a lot of this comes from my own experience going through a spiritual awakening with the psychology background and the stuff I saw, as well as supporting clients through it. Because it's an area where there's many professionals who it's part of their world, it may be part of their work, but there's so few people speaking about it publicly that usually when you Google it, you get such a host of different videos and information. Some of it may be helpful and very credible or grounded. Some of it is really out there and concerning. So I talk about everywhere from kind of like well-meaning spiritually based communities, but where it's really kind of too light and fluffy to the extent of toxic positivity. Like, oh, no bad thoughts, you're going to manifest something. Or like, well, your soul signed up for it, so you're not allowed to feel bad. Or like, well, you should just change your thoughts and then your cancer is going to go away. Or you don't need hormone replacement therapy for your brutal perimenopause symptoms or your like you don't need medication. So I've seen some real damage that people go through individually when these like well-meaning principles are kind of turn into gaslighting and the inability to hold any space for someone's personalized journey. And then it goes to the side of also pieces around like it's important to understand trauma. It's important to understand like the mental health aspect of it's opening up more. Spiritual awakening isn't always safe or in everyone's best interest. And there's times where it's very helpful, but it's nuanced. And then it gets into when we have like such an unregulated space, I think people need to be more aware of what to look for and what to look out for, because there can be well-meaning people who just don't know the limits of their own knowledge and like who they should be helping, what other professional support they might need to have in place, like who they might need to refer out, and just kind of indiscriminately being like, this is for everyone, where there's no like retreat or therapy style that is for everybody. Like there really shouldn't be. And and then you get all the way into the other end where you can get into emotionally immature or even like personality disorder territory, or really toxic manipulative individuals can get into spiritual spaces, and they might even have really high psychic gifts, have huge communities, but there can be a lot of like trauma and exploitation and boundary crossing or violating going on behind the scenes. And then you get really open-hearted spiritual people like coming in with a higher level of trust than they might otherwise. And then they can be almost more easily manipulated or gaslighted sometimes by these like charismatic healers and leaders of like, oh, you're not spiritual enough if you're questioning this. So that was where the like F this for the title kind of came from, is like, I want some kind of manual or some kind of roadmap to like, it's not to call out anyone individually, but if you know what to look for, you'll see it when you come across it.
I remember I was working in a psych hospital for a long time. For 3 years, I was also part of the suicide hotline. So, I used to sit with suicidal patients for, until 3 o'clock in the morning. Some of them actually take them then to the hospital, and pretty much the conversation of like toxic positivity, it doesn't work, because, when you're really facing death and choosing death and letting go of life, there's just, bunch of positive words, it's not going to do anything. And I remember at that time, I've been a therapist also for 30 years. At that time, it was like, okay, for some reason, psychology is not enough. We can't, it's not offering enough for a certain population. I started with this journey of going and searching and asking anybody about their spiritual journey, what goes beyond, what happens, all of that. For 5 years, I went everywhere, to the Native American reservations in Mount Shasta and Sedona and Colombia and, wherever. There is a wealth of information. When you get into this world, as you say, there's so many different levels and angles, whether you go, from the Ayurveda of the Indian, then, the Buddhist from another angle, or, the New Age. And there's so much wealth of information, and, even going to like 1930s occult. It's just so much information that suddenly I was getting bombarded with all of these things. And I remember, just for me to be able to just experience the experience, going to a lot of these channelings and just experiencing the channelings and the messages. And it was at one point, it's like I'm right on the edge of saying, okay, I need to put my foot down on the ground. Like I'm like too woo-woo up there. And is this real? Is this just a figment of my imagination? Is this, and because I also have a scientific mind, is that constantly questioning every experience and stuff. And at one point, it's like, I'm on Earth. I'm going to live this earthly concept until I'm here. So come down on Earth. Put down on Earth at this point. It gave me a lot of amazing information and amazing experiences. But there is so much of what you just said that I also saw, that someone experiences something, and then they want to take this, and their identity comes in, and that becomes part of their identity. And then they want to obviously create a business out of it, and they want to create a community out of it. And then all of our ego stuff shows up and does what it does. So as somebody has personality disorders or not, or, conditions or power needs or whatever it is, they can show up in any of these things, and then takes the vulnerability, as you say, when somebody's really vulnerable, they can easily get used and abused from these angles. So I definitely understand when you share about the toxic spirituality, and how it can affect every single person in their life. There's also this safe kind of allowing yourself to be safe, allowing yourself to take care of yourself, being responsible for, your experiences and moving forward. There's also this, some people get that experience on their own, but there are many, many people now that they're also getting experiences via, psychedelics,
Mhm.
psilocybin, mushroom, ayahuasca, many of these things that are, popping up now everywhere also. And because there are going to be some research, and there's a lot of research being done in order to look at it, can we use it from a therapeutic, angle and moving forward? So the hype is much more than this past, let's say, like 5 years. And there's a lot more of people actually having the discussions and conversations about reaching spirituality, not just the kind of like a hallucination concept, but reaching spirituality, reaching, another layer of, kind of downloading as they go through these type of trips, let's say, or experiences, and that many of it stays with them. Sometimes it's the first time they experience, and then they do like rituals so it can stay. Can you share a little bit about that angle?
Yeah, it's not my area of full specialty. Like I have some training in it. I have clients who've gone through it in different ways, like whether it's in this country or not. And so I think it looks like there's a lot of positive coming out of it in terms of research. But again, there's not this one thing for everybody. And sometimes there can be this concern of, I think it's almost our capitalistic, like quick fix culture. Sometimes there can be this piece of like, oh, I just want to go do this retreat or go do this workshop or do this thing. And as like a spiritual tourism piece or as a quick fix. And I get worried about it if it comes out of the like cultural context or lineage of where it came from. Of, is this just some dude who did it somewhere else and is now like hosting some ceremony in someone's basement? Like, where is because Western knowledge is not the only legitimate track for knowledge, but I think you need to know what to look for otherwise. And just the amount of training and mentorship that goes on, whether that's formally or not, when that's not there, I think things can get a lot more dangerous because it's a energetic component. This could be helpful for some people, but a spiritual awakening can actually be traumatic or very destabilizing for certain people. So like a very experienced shaman will know who is okay to do the ceremony and who isn't. And without that in place, I've also worked with some clients where like they've done one thing has really derailed their life or has been a very traumatic awakening. So again, like if it's looking for those things, I think it's about finding the safe support to do it. And I do believe that once we get more connected with our own intuition, there's so much out there that the stronger our connection with our own intuition is, it's like it can be our compass that guides us on the path that's right for us. Because I don't think there's a right path for every single person. Like one thing that works for everybody. It's more like what is your individual piece. And sometimes that, like, I had my own intuitive messages about really getting drawn to certain modalities or like a certain teacher to work with someone, like very clear, like this is the one thing to try next or to train in next.
Um, You're right that I do have a lot of experience also with clients who have gone and have had a lot of difficulty with the awakenings or the spiritual, if they got it through psychedelics. And partially exactly what you said, that many of these people are calling themselves shamans, but they're not necessarily skilled in, that path of taking you to that. One thing I noticed though is like if somebody like you said, they want to take this fast path of instead of going through therapy and healing through their traumas and facing their traumas and letting go and going through the process, they're like they heard it from somewhere that you could just go and have a psychedelic trip in some country and then, completely be healed from your trauma. And what I've noticed is when people have not done their actual work, a lot of times these trips are very, very frightening for them.
Mhm.
It actually re-traumatizes them. And so, I had heard in one element of one of my clients when the shaman just left in the middle of whomever he called himself shaman, he left in the middle of a ceremony with 20 people completely, engrossed in psilocybin and combination of something. And that really traumatized my client. And
Yeah.
to go through the trust that she had given, and this is what had happened. But you could see this, you can't do a shortcut. You've got to handle your life and things that are there in a safe space and in a conscious space. so that you know that when, even if the doors are opening and giving you other skills or other information, that you could incorporate that and integrate it into your day-to-day living. Because if you're not able to integrate that, then it's going to be really shocking for your whole system. And it will take you off from, moving forward and just, day-to-day function.
Yeah, we're very similar in that I think that like spirituality can be very helpful. It can be a very positive tool, but I think it should help us function in this lifetime and in this world. When it starts to fully take us out of it, it's like, well, we can be a spiritual being without being here in a human experience. So I don't think that's helpful for people if we're too far out there, like to not living, not taking responsibility for what we can, and I mean, I don't blame individuals necessarily because I think we are kind of bombarded with advertising and messages of like there is always this push for like quick fix. And I mean, I work with so many people where it's just like everybody's so busy, like just working and surviving that it's like, okay, can I just pay or can I do this quick thing and like be done with it? But I do think our journey it's a longer term, like lifelong integration and evolution over time.
Absolutely. Anything we haven't shared that you really want people to know?
Yeah, I think the main thing is just when I went into the research for the book, it's spiritual experiences are a lot more common than people realize. They're actually very common. They're just very rarely talked about publicly. So I want to help take some of the woo out of it and know that it can be a really helpful resource. And like it's within everyone. We can all have some level of connection and develop it.
Absolutely. Everyone, go get this book. It's Fuck Toxic Spirituality, Avoiding Red Flag and Navigating the Spiritual Path with Integrity by Katie Turner. Thank you for coming. Thank you for, having this conversation. Thank you for sharing your expertise. Where can people find you?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me and sharing your experience too. And people can find me at katieturnerpsychology.com and they can do my free quiz there and get a free challenge to help deepen their intuition.
And your book is everywhere, right?
I don't know if it's everywhere, but you can find it on the website. If you search it, you should be able to find it too. Yeah.
Okay. Amazon? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. Well, it was a joy having you and having this conversation with you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, bye-bye.
Break free from the forces holding you back. Get the life you deserve. Eliminate stress, reduce anxiety, decrease depression, and start living your full potential. Thousands have used Dr. Foojan Zeine's awareness integration theory, an evidence-based behavioral health breakthrough with incredible life-changing results. Getting rid of past trauma, having fulfilling relationships, increasing earnings, and living their best life. Now, the Foojan app is available to everyone. The app is Dr. Foojan Zeine's awareness integration theory in the palm of your hand. Download the Foojan app today.